I think only hours, a few days after our ancestors received the tablets of the law, listened to the voice of God, God revealed himself, what his will is, what is the path we have to follow in life. 10 commandments that to this day are really the basic principles of morality of all of Western society. You know what happened? Our ancestors, the ancestors of the Jewish people, went and built a golden calf and started dancing around and said, "This is your God that took you out of Egypt." Hours after having received the 10 commandments, very difficult to understand. How could they do something like that? Our rabbis say maybe they thought that Moses was taking too long from descending from Mount Sinai, and they thought something happened to him. Well, instead of going and send a posse to look for him, what they did is build a golden calf. And that was really a substitute for Moses, not for God, but for Moses. Or maybe it was something else. Maybe they had just left Egypt, and there they saw there's a Pharaoh who is a son of God for the Egyptians, and you have a strong leader that is also divine, and maybe this is what they really wanted, an image of a Jewish Pharaoh, and the golden calf represented that. Who knows what? The Torah tells us that God says to Moses, "Go down from Mount Sinai, take a look at what your people have done. They're dancing around a golden calf." Moses comes down from Mount Sinai holding the tablets of the law. And when he sees with his own eyes the frenzy, the dance of the people around the golden calf, after having listened to the voice of God, he takes the 2 tablets of the law, throws them to the ground, and breaks them into pieces. Why wasn't Moses somehow found guilty of doing something like that? After all, those tablets of the law were written by God. Well, it says in the Torah that God forgives the Jewish people for dancing around the golden calf and tells Moses, "You know what? You new stones, and I will write once again the 10 commandments." And the 10 commandments are given once again to Moses, and he has now a whole set of the 10 commandments. What happened to those 10 commandments? To those tablets of the law, the stones on which they were written? There was also some kind of box, an ark in the tabernacle, which our ancestors built in the desert, the Mishkan, which was replicated in the Beit HaMikdash afterwards, in the temple in Jerusalem. In the Holy of Holies, there was this ark, and in this ark, you put the 10 commandments. So they were kept there as a relic of that momentous moment in Jewish history, in world history, really. But rabbis say, not only those tablets are there, but also the pieces of the first tablets that Moses wrote. That God wrote, that Moses broke. Why do you need the pieces? Well, they say, once something acquires holiness, you can't just discard it. It's like when you have an old Torah that you can no longer use. You have to bury it as if it were a human being. You can't just discard it. A human being, toward the end of his life, maybe he doesn't function anymore. You can't just discard him because he is broken now in spirit. His health is broken. So you're not going to discard him. You couldn't do the same thing. You had to keep them there. It made me think, maybe we are more like the pieces of the tablets of the law than the whole law. We don't observe everything, but there is something in us that still has some sacredness to it, something spiritual about it. No matter how little we observe, something remains. There was a man by the name of Theodor Herzl. He was a newspaper man in Vienna. I think he finished law school. He was a totally assimilated Jew. But then something happened. A man by the name of Karl Lauger was elected mayor of Vienna on an anti-Semitic platform. And once he appeared in a mass demonstration, he heard somebody standing next to him and said, "This is our Führer, this is our leader." He realized that Jews have no longer any space in Vienna, which was a great city. And you know what? He came to the conclusion that the Jews need a state of their own. And he wrote a book called The Jewish State. And he convened the first convention, really, of the Jewish people in 1897. And he really launched what is political Zionism. And the State of Israel is a result of that first meeting in 1897. Herzl was totally far from Jewish tradition. But there was this point, this brilliant piece of holiness that was still in him. He couldn't get rid of that. And even though most of us, I say, maybe don't respect everything, the Torah says, don't covet. Somebody has a nicer car, a nicer home, a more beautiful wife, his children are better behaved, and our little heart somehow expresses some envy for something like the Torah says, don't do it. We don't observe everything. Yet there is some piece of holiness, some little piece of holiness that remains in every one of us. There was a man by the name of Franz Rosenzweig. He wanted to study medicine, I think, in Germany. But then he decided, in order to advance in philosophy, which was his field that he eventually chose, that he had to convert to Christianity in order to be able to function in society in Germany in those days. He was far away from any Jewish tradition. He thought, I'm going to say goodbye to Judaism. And he went to a small synagogue in Berlin, I think it was, for Yom Kippur. He had never gone to synagogue before, really. I don't know if he ever had a bar mitzvah or anything like that. Nothing like that. Yet, when he saw the fervor of the people, how after centuries of discrimination, of difficulties, how they were loyal to their tradition, he said to himself, how can I renounce to something that I don't really know and that I don't appreciate if these people appreciate it so much? There was a turning point in his life. He started in studying, investigating what is Jewish tradition really is, and became a very important philosopher in Jewish tradition. Well, so I say to you, no matter how far away you are, maybe you already forgot, you didn't do it, there is something divine in every one of us that it just requires the right moment, the right inspiration, and you'll see it will take a turn for the better in our life. Don't despair. Don't despair. There is something sacred about each and every human being.